Well, you know, it's funny. I'm watching you go through all of that, and I'm thinking to myself that what's really interesting is the $99 sale price is kind of stunning. And I don't know how you get through all this content and watch it start to finish, actually affect change in your life and act on it, make some of the changes and not make that back in an hour. I mean, it's kind of, I know I'm selling, but this is a sales workshop, so I'm going to sell. It really is an amazing bargain. And every so often, I mean, I've done this at my 4th workshop. When I see the price come up, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, you are making it affordable for all, which is fantastic. And we hear again and again on people's feedbacks of what they've experienced when they take it away. And I put that point in there, if you put it into practice, if you move forward with it, because that part has to happen. You can't just watch it and by osmosis, nothing changes and the whole world, you know, it looks different. You do have to act on it. But when you do, it's significant. And specifically, we're talking about sales. This is how you bring in revenue. This is not this, you know, I teach shooting workshops and I talk a lot about, you know, various techniques that can be very helpful. But if you are improving your sales, you are immediately improving your bottom line. It is a direct correlation, and that's what this workshop does, which I think is pretty incredible.
Can I just say too that, I mean, I was here yesterday and I still went home and started watching a little bit of the rewatch and got something out of it that I didn't get while I was actually sitting here. One of the biggest ahas for me yesterday, I think it was Trisha who was saying about the gift certificates, her mentality about what that meant, that it was, oh, now this person has this gift certificate that they have to spend and what a pain in the butt that is. And you were like, no, it's a gift to them. And I was here and I heard that conversation happen live, but it didn't sink in until I rewatched it. It's the ability to have those downloads and be able to get little pieces over and over again, it's awesome.
Yes, and actually that's one of the great benefits of teaching is the amount, after you hear yourself say it a few times, you're like, that is a great idea. No, but truly, there is a lot to be gained from that, and I think if you've ever heard me talk, I always start with mindset, but that is where it all changes. That is the fork right there. You adjust that and everything does change. And we're going to have a little shout out from Nikki MacArthur, who was in our course 2 years ago, the first course we did, talking about her experience of when she sat and told us what she really thought of how doable this kind of change was versus where she is now. It's going to be really interesting. But I think I need to get the notes real quick when you get a chance. Perfect. Okay. And then did you, Susan, you were telling me that one of the questions that came in that you thought would be a really fun way to kick off today.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure who asked it at this point, but I know there was a question about, you know, watching you, Tamara, as far as what you've accomplished and you going through sales and kind of going through these step-by-step processes. I feel like there's a lot of people who maybe are just starting out or feel like you're kind of head and shoulders above where they are and you're making it look so easy, but they live in a small town and they're not charging the kind of money that you are, and they don't, you know, understand how you got from A to B where you are now.
Okay. Yeah, so a few things. Completely honestly, when you say you make it look so easy, I have these flashes in my head of like, oh my God, it's not easy. It is not easy. No part of this was like, and then that one day I turned around and the sky opened up. It wasn't like that. It was a digging, kind of clawing your way out of a lot of tangled mess where it did seem very remote, the possibility of being able to kind of have a business that runs more smoothly. And you know, I've shared this, I think last time I was here, about the fact that the first few years I ran my business, I ran it in a very disorganized fashion. I didn't have a system in place. I didn't have a process in place. I had all my orders come in via internet. I would upload it and then just wait to see what came in. If somebody says, I'll take 4 5x7s, I would say, great, I'll get those 4 5x7s to you. And that was my sales process. So I had to actually look at that. And part of what was very helpful was stepping back and financially looking at, in the last year, how much money did I make? Okay, let me break that down even further. How much of that money that came in was from portrait sales? How much of it was from weddings? What were my average sales for portraits and weddings? Because that's what I was doing at the time. What amount of dollars came in from commercial work? How much was the sale, the dollars made in the sale, and how much came later, like when the images were re-released near the holidays or something? Getting a handle on that and then comparing it to session fees. And when I did all that and put it all together, I realized that as hard as I was working, and I was working very, very hard, it wasn't like I was stupid or I didn't have the information that would have helped me to make a difference. I'd come out of system management in terms of consulting. I knew exactly how to reorganize my organization to be more efficient. I just didn't do it. I knew what to do, I just didn't do it. When I looked at all that, I saw that I was basing my whole business model on collecting session fees. I was thinking that if I secured a shoot, I would get the session fee, and for me, anything that came after that was just what the client decided to buy. That was my mentality, not for like 2 days, for a few years. My mentality was, I really can't do much about the fact that once I get the order out, what happens, because I am so busy, I have to get to the next thing. And people would call and ask to meet or talk through something, and I'd be like, I'm so sorry, you know, I'm just go ahead and just let me know what you want. I would say that because I honestly didn't know when I could meet with them because I was so busy taking on the next round of sessions as they came in and basing my revenue model on collecting session fees. When I looked at it, session fees were 10% of the money I made. And that was when my sales were low. That was when my sales were low, I saw that. And I thought, So when I first started out, the day I started shooting and created a little price list, which I made in a Word document, and I used flourishes that I found on clip art, and I attached to my price list, and I said, isn't that fancy? I built it on my PC in a Word document with clip art, and I said session fee in-house, because I was literally in my house, $50. Session fee on location, $75. And then after that, I had 3 packages, and the packages were basically what it seemed like most people around me were charging. That vaguely seemed like what most people were charging. So I looked at all of that, and I thought, well, I'm brand new, so mine's gonna be about 30% less. And that's kind of, and I said, so it was like 2 8x10s, a 5x7, 11x14, package A. That was exactly how I started and what I did. And then within that first year, I got so busy, I realized pretty quickly I need to keep raising my prices. So it went from like, all right, fine, $75, $100. Okay, $100, $125. This was my in-house on location. And so on and so forth. Okay, so my package A is no longer $200 or $185. It's gonna be $240. And then a few months later, it's gonna be like $270. I will never sell that. That is how I progressed through this. And then, like I said, the first year I changed my prices 12 times. And this just kind of kept happening. I would save this, someone would call in, I'm like, Ray, do you remember what I told you I cost when you, and then eventually, when I had my big kind of epiphany, which really was complete with tears and exhaustion, and I don't think I can do this anymore, and I stopped everything. I put the brakes on everything, and I pulled out my favorite thing in the whole world, which is my whiteboard. And I said, all right, let's figure this out. And that's when I determined that my session fees were such a small percentage that my mentality was that I can't charge people for this. I love it too much. That was I mean, if I'm loving to do this, I don't really want to ask people to spend with me. It was all just disoriented. And so that is where I came from. So when you ask and you say to me, well, it looks like it's all so easy for you, I kind of have to laugh because it's still not easy for me. Most people that I know, if you saw the work-life balance course and you saw the last half hour of that course, did that look easy? That kind of, you know, all the communication and all the work and all the effort, and then my children juggling the green apples. I mean, that is still my day-to-day existence. I have a lot of processes in place to make it cleaner and simpler, and I have a huge attitude shift, which just brings my stress level down, which makes everything easier. I don't get angry with clients. I don't get frustrated with them. I don't ever roll my eyes and say, what a jerk request. I don't do that because it's completely the opposite of what I really believe, which is I'm grateful and I appreciate this, and how can I do better? And that mentality isn't just nirvana, it's a significantly more successful way to produce revenue. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Did that answer the question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I mean, it's just good to hear about the whole process of how you got from where you started to where you are now. Because people think sometimes people think it's out of their reach because they're starting from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know?
And I appreciate that. I know the beginning. I live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I don't live in New York City. You know? Do you know where Chapel Hill, North Carolina is? I mean, it's a lovely little town. I think it's 50,000 people. We have more when the students are there, less when they're not. You know, my studio's in Durham. It's not like I'm in this giant market. So, and most people I know who are doing well, I mean, I could rattle off a bunch of names. Not that many of them are in major markets either. It's less about, you know, who am I exposed to, and it's more about, you know, how am I really putting my attention here?
Cool. That's awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So should we be kicking off? Is that what I'm hearing? Not that we weren't already just chugging.
We have already kicked off.
Yeah. And you know, one last point on that, the idea that maybe it's forget about me per se, it being, you know, easier or not easier. One other point is it is the #1 thing I hear when I teach. Yeah, I hear you, but I have this, this, and this. We all have the this, this, and this, and that's not saying I don't have sympathy for it, I don't understand. But I do see people say, I just don't know how it'll ever happen. Okay, I'll try. Holy crap, it just happened. I see that a lot.